Welcome again to LISP your mesh to shape. This second module will be dedicated to the ways we have to open, examine, load, and execute AutoLisp code. Although I suppose most of you are already familiar with AutoLisp basics, our first module will be dedicated to a brief overview of the Visual Lisp development environment, which is our preferred tool for examining and loading the AutoLisp code. This programming environment is not available in AutoCAD for Mac, so we will explain the workarounds available for Mac users. Working in Windows, we can use the Visual Lisp Editor option in the Applications panel of the Manage tab to open the development environment. As we said before, this environment is not available in AutoCAD for Mac. In cases like this, we'll display a Windows-only icon as the one shown in the upper right corner of this screen. The Visual Lisp application window will then open, displaying its own menu, toolbars, and status line. We'll be using mainly an editor window in which the AutoLisp source code can be typed and the Visual Lisp console, which will be used for evaluating AutoLisp expressions. In this class, we won't be typing any code as you have it in the dataset as an LSP file. The AutoLisp expressions we will be using are included in the datasets AU2012-mesh.lsp file. By now, I expect you have extracted it to a folder in your computer. Clicking on the Open File toolbar button, we can look for our AU2012-mesh Lisp source code file. Once open, the source code text will be displayed in its own editor window. Note the way different words are colored. These colors identify the data type: blue for AutoLisp functions, magenta for strings, green for numbers, and so on. The AutoLisp functions here defined will not be available in our drawing until we load them. This can be done by selecting the Load Active Edit Window button. Of course, the editor window containing the code must be the active window. To show how this works, we'll try the first two functions that deal with the visual style and the 3D point of view. To see their effect, we can draw any 3D object, for example, a mesh torus. These functions create the custom visual style we used for our title slide image and set a southwest isometric view. The custom visual style is defined in the var-vis function. This function operates by setting the value of a series of system variables that control the graphic display of 3D objects. Most of the names for these variables begin with the VS prefix. For example, the orange color we have used is not a color assigned to the object or to the layer. It is a visual style color set by the VS monocolor system variable. This visual style coloring is enabled by setting the VS face color mode variable to 1. The color of the object's edges is set in the same way through the VS edge color variable. The var-vis function is included in the cmd-sw function that also establishes the southwest isometric point of view calling the dview command and performs after that a zoom extents. Once the code has been loaded, we will call the cmd-sw function by evaluating it in the Visual Lisp console. This is done by writing the name cmd-sw between parentheses and pressing Enter. This console works in a way somewhat similar to the AutoCAD's command line. The drawing will change the point of view and will be colored automatically. Let's change to the AutoCAD window and see how this is done. First, I'll draw a mesh torus somewhere in the screen. Anywhere, any size. Okay. Then I'll go to the Visual Lisp editor. The code has yet to be loaded, so I'll click on the Load Edit Window button. Now I have only the need to type in the console the expression parentheses cmd-sw parentheses and just press Enter. And here's my custom visual style and point of view. For Mac users, this development environment is not available, at least not yet. Autolisp programs can be typed using any plain text editor, but it is advisable to use a dedicated programming editor, of which several are available in the Mac App Store. Most can be adapted to achieve syntax coloring and parentheses checking. Autolisp code files can be loaded both for Mac and Windows from AutoCAD's command line using the load function as shown in this slide. Note that slashes are used in the path instead of backslashes, and that it is typed between double quotes. The functions will be loaded when pressing Enter, printing a message that confirms everything went OK. And just as we did with the Visual Lisp console, we can type in the command line the name of the cmd-sw function within parentheses and press Enter to execute it. This, as I said before, will work both for Windows and Mac. Other way Autolisp programs can be loaded for both versions is by using the appload command. This command can also be found in the Manage Tabs application panel. It is represented by the Load Application button. This way we end our second module. We have seen how to load and evaluate our Autolisp functions using the Visual Lisp environment in Windows and the workarounds available for Mac users. We have also tested a couple of functions aimed at setting a visual style and a 3D point of view. In our next module, Meshing through Lisp, we will study mesh objects and the tools we can use to create and modify them. Thank you for attending this class. I hope we'll meet again in our next module.